It's interesting. Okay, we got to go on for today because I won't get these two done. The media equation. The first thing I need to tell you is that when you cover this, be sure to click the link. Okay? I'll go back and get you to what we're doing with it, but you got to look at the rest or you'll have trouble with the exam. This is not an optional link. Okay? All right, so these guys are at Stanford. You can go look at their current work. It's called Media X. If you Google Media X at Stanford, you can see what they're doing. Stanford is in the Silicon Valley. They're very connected with the developers in that end of the world. Their faculty consult, work with those guys a lot. These are guys, the guys who developed the media equation are guys who are working, combination of working with, trying to do research with, trying to get them to hire them as consultants, trying to write something that they would like, all of that stuff, okay? And this is a research-based book called The Media Equation. And what they did was this. They had a bunch of graduate students, okay, so they could do this work in a lab. What they said was, wonder how this new media stuff works. Wonder if it works anything like old media or like life before media. What do we know about how people treat people? How do people interact with each other? What do we know? So they had the graduate students go out and review the social scientific literature, which was the literature of comm, psychology, and sociology, essentially. Review that literature for research-based social scientific findings that have been validated that say what we know about how people interact. Okay? So they did a literature review, and they came up with, I've forgotten the number now, I've got to go read the book again, but I'm going to say 34. Might have been 52. But I think it's about 34 basic principles that they could point to specific experiments and follow-up experiments that generated social scientific knowledge about how people treat people. Okay? How people interact. Things that they could say they were sure about. Size arouses. Really? Well, yeah, if you walk up, if you're my height and some guy walks in and he's 6'2", there's a response. If, a little person walks in, there's a response. There's an arousal to size. And I'll go through the categories here in just a second. But there's some stuff that they knew, okay? So then what they did was they had their students go back, and they worked with them, and replicate each of those experiments. The basic experiments from which we found social scientific knowledge about how people interact with people. They went back and they redid them. But when they redid them, they interposed someplace in the research design a machine instead of a person. So that in the experiment, the subjects were interacting with machines, whereas in the original experiment, they were interacting with people, at whatever the key point was. And these were their general findings from doing that across those 36 knowns about how we treat each other. If you interpose a machine, essentially what they said was, we treat machines the same way. In other words, technology has become so ingrained in our everyday lives that we don't find it to be different. We don't treat it like different anymore. In fact, there's things about media-based technology that make them so mundane that we just go right over it. Okay? So I just told my phone to shut up. A lot of good that does, but that's how I treat my phone. I'm talking it's like I'm talking to a person. If this goes down, about the first thing I'll do is turn around and say something to it, like it's listening. Okay? So essentially, so what they did was then they went and sold this to interface designers in the Valley. They said, we'll tell you about your interfaces and how people like stuff. People like stuff from machines. Natural, social, easy. I mean, you really, 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 really want a girlfriend or a boyfriend who's difficult? Every once in a while you'll find somebody who's like that. They always bring home the dirty puppy. But generally speaking, most of us kind of like somebody that we just sort of get along with, and it's just it kind of goes, and it's got, it's really. But really, if I really had to, God, every time I turn around, I got to work at it, and it's hard, and it isn't. It's just kind of distasteful. Eventually, I'm going to dump your butt. Move on to somebody else. So, when your Windows gray box put up error message after error message after error message that was big long strings of text and numbers, right? You had to go look up on a lookup chart what went wrong with that process because it wouldn't work. People got sick of that, and they bought Macs because they were a lot easier. And the GUI interface made people go to computers because they didn't have to write line code anymore. Easier. Da-da-da-da-da. So they found... Now, if you ask someone, okay, I want you to pay attention. Now, do you think it's reasonable to treat a machine like a person? Yes or no?
Yes.
You lying sack of crap. You know it isn't. People think, if you got time to stop and think it through, you know that your car is not a person. Would it be reasonable to talk to your car as though it's a person? You expect a response? No. I think I am some kind of moron. So even these subjects, when brought to their attention, they said, no, we know that. But the problem is we're on autopilot a lot. It's not in the forefront of our attention all the time. And what they found was most of the time, we just do it because it's natural. We're not thinking about it. So, the red light starts to blink, and the first thing that happens is you look at your dashboard and call it a bad name. Someone coming to this. It's a car, but we do it anyway. Okay? And that's what they found. Okay? And advanced technology just as much as cars. Okay? So, new media, old brain. We're still scared by the movie, even though it's on we know it's a projected image on the screen. It still scares the absolute bejesus out of it. Right? Or delights us, or whatever it is. We know it's a projection. Okay? And it implies how people like stuff, how people like this kind of electronic stuff. So then what you